It is such a deep, 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 deep honor to be able to sync up with you in the ethers and take this adventure today. It's so good to see all of your names and faces weaving in. Let's go ahead and start with a nice, deep, deep breath in and a nice big sigh, a nice big ah, and another nice deep breath in. Really allowing for the breath to rise through the chest and a big sigh, just settling in, letting it all relax, all of the oxygen relax through the lungs, out of your body as you just kind of settle all the way in, almost like you're slouching on the next exhale, right? So nice deep breath in, rising up in the spine, and then really collapsing. So you're crouching down over the lungs, letting them relax, fully pressing the air out, and then a nice big inhale on the other side, rising up again through the spine. So welcome today. We're going to be diving into timelines. So let's go ahead. This is an interesting conversation because we get to really explore not only our own timeline, but those of parallel timelines that we're working, as well as past life. There's a lot of different ways when we're talking about timelines, and you're going to continue to hear more and more conversation around this topic of timelines because the timelines are collapsing. So let's talk for a moment what that means. And to get into this part of the conversation, we get to think from a quantum perspective. And one of the things quantum teaches us is that from the point of observation, things are in wave form or they can be in particle form. They can't coexist. Something can't be observed as either in motion and a wave or as a singular particle and stationary. And so timelines very much function in the same capacity. Timelines, we have true time. And anytime you have been in meditation and come out and felt like that was 2 minutes and you find out that it was 2 hours, or like we do here, maybe it feels like 10 minutes and we're in for 30. That is the experience of tapping into the divine timing, the sacred timing, the frequencies. It's not just about the frequencies, it's about how time seemingly stands still. Well, it's not standing still, it's expanding and contracting at any given point in time, because when we're in meditation, we're actually tapping into that construct. We're eliminating the construct of time. However, when we observe it, like take a breath in right now, close your eyes and imagine the sun. When we observe it, as we observe the sun in that exact moment that you imagined the sun coming through, you are creating more like the particle. It's the observation where time is getting pinned or pegged in that exact moment. And so we're going to play with these today because what's happening is as we come into new paradigm consciousness and really begin to move the field, greater and greater timelines are going to come off of where they had been singularly observed by a certain individual who is projecting a series of events. And they're going to come into the greater unified field of consciousness where it's more of the movement. It's more of a massive wave of circumstances and events as opposed to singular. So kind of a complex, we could spend all morning discussing this, but I think, you know me, I prefer we get into the experience of it and allow yourself to integrate it, and then we can talk about the mechanics behind a lot of it. So with that, imagining that sun fully coming in all the way now, really feeling its light shining down on the top of your head, its warmth, Go ahead as you imagine that light, when you really, really gaze at the sun, you start to see like little particles behind your vision, or maybe you see shapes or images or just energy, much like staring at hot pavement. And you can see the energy coming off of the earth, the heat coming off of the earth. Go ahead and really call that forward as we activate this part of our light link. And a nice big sigh, shifting focus down to the earth. Again, collapsing in, really allowing yourself to kind of crunch in and over who and what you are, your belly, your core. And then again, rising up and into the sun. And on the next exhale and crunch, really pulling those stomach muscles in, squeezing through the rib cage in, imagining you're like a cannonball dropping into a huge lake or a pool of water, or even the ocean, off of the back of a boat in the middle of the ocean, just cannonballing in. So again, we're just going to fluctuate between these two, rising into the sun, feeling the fullness of your light fully inflated, and then squeezing all of that out, coming down into that cannonball. Maybe you notice it feels dark when you do this. Really coming into the body. And I want to have you squeeze as you do that to really activate that energy in the core, crunching in, toggling back and forth a few more times. And then on our next exhale, you don't have to crunch in. Just allow yourself fully expanded now to imagine jumping into the earth, into the crystal quartz, into a huge, massive ocean of consciousness, of light and of love. Imagining yourself plunging beneath the surface of the water. Allow yourself to really, really, really feel what it's like beneath the water. Maybe the shock of cool or perfect temperature, the swimming. As humans, we always obviously reorient ourselves, right? Unless we dove in first. If we're jumping, we're usually kicking our way back to the top. And before you fully kick all the way to the top, I want to have you gaze for the sun from underneath the surface. Beautiful. Right. And take another couple of kicks all the way to the surface, coming up above again, and now feeling the ocean, the pool, whatever body of water you chose to dive into, all around you as you imagine the sun, water in your hair and on your face, and the sun shining down. Go ahead and roll your shoulders, lick your lips, relax your jaw here as we prepare to start our journey. Just taking this moment of quiet. I want to have you exhale out everything that's happened so far in your day today. Everything that's happened, especially if I'm catching you in the morning as we are live. Be very deliberate. Maybe you grabbed your cup of coffee. Maybe the news was on in the background or a show, maybe some music. I want to have you hit the rewind button on your day so far. Rewind, winding back, 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 back. Where you were guided to sit, rising from where you're sitting, and just going backwards all the way through, taking your time until you find yourself at the edge of your bed, that moment when your feet hit the floor. And from the edge of the bed to the moment you sat up, notice the sounds. Was there an alarm? Was there a text or a notification that came through? Was there just quiet and you heard the birds singing? thought, what a beautiful moment to wake up to with birds singing. Maybe you have a pet that was anxious and telling you it was time to get the day going. Rolling the shoulders. All right. We're almost there. I want to have you back up one more moment to that moment just before you woke up. And I'm not counting if you laid in bed this morning, checking email or, processing. I want to go to that moment just before you woke up. And so like a feather, you get to drift into this moment. Allow yourself to drift. Don't scan for it. Just let that moment just before you woke up come to you. It's that moment just before you booted, just before control engaged. It's that moment of consciousness where the subconscious is still active. And in this moment here is where we're going to insert the sun and turn on the super conscious. Turning on the super conscious. Now, our timelines run as we awake to the morning. We engage in predetermined timelines that we've set based on our choices and activities and everything we're up to. And you can see, knowing that it was Tuesday and finding yourself here, that you picked up a timeline that brought us together. But just before that moment that you woke up, when the consciousness was just starting to boot, I want to have you imagine booting the superconscious, which we can do because we know there's no space or time. You can go back and reset. So I want to have you boot the superconscious. So instead of imagining just the sun, I want to have you feel that full light force, full Metatronic spectrum. Metatron being the full light spectrum. The superconscious functions in pure white light. It runs on the rainbow frequency as it gets refracted through the day. And so taking a moment here as you're breathing in and out, go very slowly through your thoughts. Really let, if you can, like a feather falls to the earth, let these thoughts come to you. Let them fall to you. Nice inhale and exhale. Pulling on that full spectrum of Metatronic light. Okay, everybody feels like you've dimensionally shifted. If you're having trouble getting there, imagining that in your room right before you and before you're about to sit up, instead of sitting up into the day, you sit up into a portal of light, as though there's a door there with light shining from behind it, and you pretty much just sit up and pop through that door. And in this spectrum of light, it's really powerful because all before you now, like rays of sunshine. So imagining you're now sitting on a disk of light or in a room illuminated in all white. It could be circular, it could be square. I'm feeling circular for the exercise we're going to do. Just make sure it's like an orb with all white light. You may find yourself sitting, no longer doing what you're imagining your physical body is doing, which is laying down just before you come to what awareness, consciousness, but sitting, maybe in lotus position. Maybe you find yourself rising and stretching in this white light, kind of like taking a shower. You raise your hands up and you let that quantum, beautiful Metatronic ray, the whole spectrum ray, shine on you, almost like a laser beam. It's just filling you up with light. This is a good one. I haven't seen it kind of interact in that way before. I like it. Okay, next. all before you as you call in the timeline for the day are the options. And the way they're going to appear for us, oftentimes they'll appear like literal threads that you could start to pull on or follow, like breadcrumbs, right? Like you just start to pull on the thread and walk a certain path. I want you first to observe these timelines, though, as though there are multiple doors in front of you, as though they don't really look like doors. It more so looks like, behind this curtain, you could do this, and this curtain, multiple options that are laid out, much like doors. But they're more so just timelines. They're rays. That's what they are. They're vectors. That's the word I'm looking for. They look like vectors. And so you could go down this vector. It looks like you're all standing on a sun disk or dial. And the points of the rays of the sun are the different vectors. That's what I'm tracking. Okay, now that we're set, calling all of that in, this is where you get to start to play. Now that I've given you the cue up, this is our timeline collapser. So here we go. Imagining, looking back at what you actually did leading up to this moment. All of that we just rewound. You got up. Did you have conscious thought as your feet hit the floor? Maybe, maybe not, right? The moment those feet hit the floor, that is go. That is system boot. That is like hitting, we enter a search or a command. And then what do? We hit the enter button, right? Our feet hitting the floor is the equivalent of hitting the enter or the go button on a device. So I want to have you backing up from that and just look at that as the vector that was experienced. And now there's probably going to emerge directly in front of you. That one feels like it's over to the right, but it could be different for you. Again, we're just observing these different vectors, these different rays, these different timelines. Now we have one out in front of us that feels like an arrow of a compass or dial, frequency shifting as we tune into that one. Holy cow. And this one feels like the hand on a clock that, like, as though you're able to set the different vectors for the timelines. This one feels forward motion directly in front of you. When you step into this light ray, this light vector, it feels magical. It feels like, first of all, the largest vector, it looks like you're all standing on a massive dial, right? And it is set for sacred time. But before we go down sacred time, I want you to recognize or shift your focus momentarily, because don't forget that sacred time will encompass all of the vectors. It's all encompassing, but I want to focus in on some of these other timelines that are here and present. So go ahead and pick one over to the left side of your peripheral vision. Pick a timeline, a vector array to the left side, and notice how it's not all white like the field, but it probably has some color. And so drawing color into this space now, as though each of those rays has a different color. Maybe one's pink, one's green. The one we already did this morning actually feels gray because we've depleted that energy. It's already passed. So feel into some of these other timelines. Now, what exists on a timeline? Again, a timeline is a point of observation. As humans, we observe and then we project. So what is the projection? It is our thoughts. It is certain activities. So what I want to have you do here, we're going to use color to determine any timelines that need to be cleaned up. Go ahead. There are a few timelines that feel tar-like or black or murky, and maybe one or two that just feel dull. Like maybe there's color there, but they could be shining so much brighter. And there could be there's one that looks like very brown, sludgy, like eek, 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 yuck. So using your incredible superconscious mind, your light force, the golden rays of the sun, I want to have you bend down to that vector, that ray, all the rays that are needing a reboot, needing to be healed. So for example, any ray that has darker energy around it, calling upon your family, letting that ray represent your family and aspects of your timeline. And it could be anything. It could be ancestors as well, where their timeline, something, a certain series of events that unfolded and allowed you to get to this moment in time. If we were to follow that vector, that ray, we would actually, the darker, heavier ones, especially the family, they would take us back in time. And so we get to ask that question, are these timelines coming from future? Or are they coming from past that you're working off of? And there's no right or wrong answer because it's both. There is no space and time. We are all future and past. But on some of these timelines, they were set by a parent or an ancestor's choices or actions that put us in an energetic realm. It infused us. It locked us in to a frequency that we were then, our soul chose to be born into, maybe even for this moment in time, where you get to release whatever that is. And so now, calling on your Metatronic light, your full spectrum light, and just bending down in your room, in this quantum, superconscious, starseed, super creator room, just reaching down and touching that one vector, that one ray, that one thread, and allowing it to be infused with light and love. Just imagining maybe even picking up the cord and feeling it like you're hydrating it. Much like for the ladies out there, if you get, say, a keratin or a color treatment, you know, the hair has broken strands on it. And yet, as that it infuses and it gets hydrated, it's like those little weak strands fill in, they come back together. Taking our time on this one because we're actually doing multiple. Go ahead now and shift to one or two others if you haven't already. Now that you've seen how to do it, you've seen how your energy field, your superconscious, your Metatronic mind is infusing the Metatronic ray, the full spectrum of light, into this timeline. And notice how, as they heal, that central dial, the big one that we started this portion of the vision with, it's like it's filling up, it's expanding to being one massive field of potential. And it's almost as though all of these vectors and rays are drawing up into you to create one powerful orb of light. And so we're doing a reset in this moment, allowing the brain to calibrate without those other timelines impacting the choices and the decisions. You guys are amazing. You just like shifted everything, everybody like totally cleared out in this moment. Feel that. And now calling in, instead of it being timelines. A timeline, again, is like the particle. Call in that sacred wave of light. Sacred time, not even timeline, but the wave of light, where the divine, the timing of the divine is operating. And let that begin to infuse into your day. So you're being carried along the timeline, light and love, a full spectrum light and love, almost as though you're bobbing in a current down a river, able to swim and take action, but also notice that engaging in this wave, it's like we've left the room and suddenly just been deposited in a rainbow road of frequency. Or it could stay all white in that Metatronic full spectrum ray. Imagining almost as though you're floating on your back, twisting and turning. But encompassed in this is your future vision as well. So we're going to hit a point where you get to land. And it will engage a timeline, but is that timeline now, this full spectrum wave of energy you're drawing through in sync with the wave of light that is the divine? Inevitably, to land and to manifest, we have to call it in. And so what is the first thing? In a moment, I'm going to have you drop into your body. I want you to feel into the desires here of spirit, of yourself. And what is the first thing following this incredible time that you are spending, this timelessness time that you are, timeless experience. That's what we want to say. And as we call in the next moment, allow yourself to begin to see it coming into form. Maybe you see yourself licking your lips and relaxing your jaw. Maybe you see yourself before you do it, bringing your inner vision to match your outer vision. Maybe you see yourself just sitting back after we complete and taking the energy in, letting it really absorb into your body. Maybe you see yourself reaching for that cup of tea or coffee or water. Maybe you see yourself getting slammed by activity outside of the room, kids, family, to-do lists. And all of that's okay. So my call to action for you is to recognize you're in control of these timelines. They're going to be continuing to collapse. And most likely where you're experiencing resistance in the days and weeks to come are not as much around your own trauma. And we're all perpetually on the journey of getting it right. I'm saying that in quotes. It's not so much going to be about that, but more so the experience of how do you bring all of these timelines that are condensing together? And where is the awareness around false timelines? Our cell phones, 5G, the media, they're all here to help control our timeline, right? By impacting the electromagnetic frequencies that are out there, they're able to put us on certain timelines as well. Think of Christmas and the holiday season as a perfect example, right? They're guiding our timelines. They're speeding them up. They're bringing them in way before. It's a perfect example, but it happens in very subtle and minute ways as well. And so it's important to recognize and to begin to start to feel where there are false timelines that have been crafted for you, and then truly where your timeline is. Allowing yourself to become in spacelessness and to know that it's not about your choices as much as it is about when you feel the resistance, how you process that energy in the moment. In the old paradigm, we would fall into the trauma, into the victimhood. We would do all of it. Now we're able to see these things, these different timelines rising up, coming through ancestors, through family, through media, through our environment. We're able to see and sense and feel them instantly if we're centered and paying attention. So slow yourself down as you're rising in the morning. This is my invitation. Activate the sacred timeline of the divine, the wave form. It's not actually a timeline, it's a wave form, and call this energy in as we just did, and allow it to be your guide, truly presenced in the moment. And when you feel the resistance or a ping, just breathe, pause, correct it right then. Don't wait. Or if you aren't in a position to wait, absolutely reconcile it before you go to bed or as you're going to bed, drifting off to sleep. And absolutely, if you wake up with it still not reconciled, do not rise until you can feel the influence of that timeline having shifted. There is no good, bad judgment. There's no right or wrong choice in what we do. It's all about how you process the energy. You continue to take the junk food, junk energy in, and you create the space, the sacred time, sacred waves of time to move through your life. And so with that, you get to now take action on that, bringing the inner vision to match the outer vision, and that first thing that you called in that you were going to do, following our time together. We should have a count on how many times I said time today. I'm going to see if I can make it the rest of the day without saying it, because I think I hit my quota for the week. With that, namaste.